The world rarely stops to think about the narrow places that quietly control its future. But tonight all eyes turn toward a thin stretch of water that carries the weight of global power. In the dark blue corridor between Iran and Oman lies the Strait of Hormuz, a passage so narrow that from the sky it looks like a fragile thread, yet through this thread flows nearly 1/5 of the world's oil. Tankers longer than city blocks move through it every day, carrying energy that lights homes, powers factories, and fuels economies across continents. Now the world hears troubling reports that this waterway has been heavily restricted and mined as tensions surge across the Middle East. At the center of those tensions is a growing storm involving Iran, the United States, and Israel, a confrontation that many analysts fear could reshape the future of global stability. The phrase, Iran and Israel war, is no longer whispered only in think tanks and military briefings. It is now echoing through newsrooms, markets, and government halls across the planet. When nations clash at this scale, geography becomes destiny, and the Strait of Hormuz stands directly in the path of history. Imagine a single morning when oil tankers suddenly stop moving through that channel. Ports fall silent, shipping lanes empty, and energy traders across the globe stare at screens flashing red. Prices surge in minutes, fuel costs spike, airlines reconsider routes, manufacturing slows. Every ripple spreads outward from that narrow waterway, touching the daily lives of billions who may never even see the Persian Gulf on a map. This is the quiet power of chokepoints, places where geography gives small spaces enormous influence over global systems. The Strait of Hormuz has always been one of those places. For decades it has been the lifeline for energy exports from Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Iraq, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. Every supertanker passing through represents a moving river of wealth and stability for economies that depend on continuous energy flow. But when conflict looms, that same lifeline can become a strategic weapon. Iran understands this reality better than almost anyone. Its coastline stretches along the northern edge of the strait, giving it the ability to watch every vessel that enters or exits the Persian Gulf. Its military doctrine has long focused on asymmetric strategies designed to disrupt rather than dominate. Fast attack boats, coastal missile batteries, surveillance drones, and naval mines form a network meant to turn narrow waters into dangerous territory for large vessels. When tensions rise, even the suggestion of closing the strait can send shockwaves through global markets. The world has seen similar threats before. During the Iran-Iraq War of the 1980s, the region experienced the Tanker War, a brutal campaign in which ships were attacked and mines were planted across shipping lanes. The conflict forced international naval forces to intervene to protect commercial traffic. Those lessons remain deeply embedded in modern military planning. Today the stakes are even higher because global energy demand has grown dramatically since those earlier confrontations. Asia, Europe, and much of the developing world rely on energy flows that move through this exact corridor. Japan and South Korea import most of their oil through the strait. India and China depend heavily on Gulf exports. Even nations far from the region feel the impact when prices change suddenly. In an interconnected economy, a disruption in one narrow waterway can echo through every market on Earth. As tensions intensify around the possibility of a wider Iran and Israel war, governments across the world are watching this corridor with growing concern. Intelligence agencies track ship movements hour by hour. Satellite systems scan the sea surface for suspicious activity. Naval commanders review contingency plans designed for scenarios that everyone hopes will never happen. Because if the strait closes completely, reopening it would require one of the most complex maritime security operations in modern history. Clearing naval mines alone could take weeks. Mines are silent weapons, hidden beneath the surface, waiting for the moment a ship passes overhead. They can disable or destroy even the largest tanker. For that reason, specialized vessels equipped with sonar and remote-operated vehicles would need to sweep every kilometer of the channel. Meanwhile, warships would have to protect those operations from potential missile attacks, drone strikes, or fast-moving boats capable of appearing suddenly in confined waters. The danger is not only military. Insurance companies play a quiet but powerful role in global shipping. If the strait becomes too dangerous, insurers may refuse to cover tankers entering the region. Without insurance, most shipping companies simply cannot operate. In that moment, global supply begins to freeze even if the physical route remains technically open. This is how economic pressure builds during geopolitical crises. One warning, one incident, or one explosion can shift the calculations of entire industries. That is why every new report about restrictions or mines in the Strait of Hormuz sends a ripple of anxiety through energy markets. Traders understand that supply chains depend on confidence as much as physical infrastructure. When confidence fades, volatility rises quickly. Across the Persian Gulf, sailors continue their routines while carrying the burden of these geopolitical tensions. Crews on oil tankers often come from many nations, working long voyages across oceans to keep the energy trade moving. Filipino engineers maintain engines deep inside steel hulls. Indian officers guide navigation systems. European captains study radar screens as their ships approach narrow channels filled with traffic. Most of them are not soldiers, yet their journeys take them through one of the most strategic military zones on Earth. Above them, satellites watch silently, while faraway decision-makers debate strategies that could alter the course of global events. The world has entered a moment when small decisions carry enormous consequences. The Strait of Hormuz is no longer just a shipping route. It has become a symbol of how fragile modern systems can be when confronted by conflict. Every tanker that passes through represents the fragile balance between cooperation and confrontation. And as tensions linked to the Iran and Israel war continue to rise, the world waits to see whether this narrow corridor will remain open, or whether it will become the spark that transforms regional conflict into a global crisis. Across the calm surface of the Persian Gulf, the tension of a changing world moves quietly like an unseen tide. From above, the Strait of Hormuz looks narrow and fragile, a thin ribbon of water connecting the Persian Gulf to the open ocean. Yet this passage carries an enormous responsibility for the entire planet. Every day, massive oil tankers travel through this corridor, transporting energy that powers cities, industries, transportation systems, and economies around the globe. For decades, the strait has served as the lifeline of global energy trade, but today it stands at the center of rising geopolitical tension. Reports of restrictions, naval activity, and potential mines in these waters have caused governments and markets everywhere to pay close attention. The growing instability connected to the Iran and Israel war has turned the region into a strategic crossroads where military readiness, economic survival, and international diplomacy intersect. When the possibility emerges that the strait could be blocked or disrupted, the world begins to feel a sense of uncertainty that spreads far beyond the Middle East. Oil traders in distant financial centers watch prices surge and fall as every new development unfolds. Airlines calculate how fuel costs might affect future flights. Shipping companies review insurance risks and possible route changes. All of this attention focuses on a single reality: if the Strait of Hormuz stops functioning as a safe corridor, the consequences will reach nearly every country on Earth. What makes this situation even more suspenseful is the quiet but intense preparation happening across the region. International naval forces have increased their presence in the Gulf, forming coordinated patrols designed to protect commercial shipping. Modern destroyers equipped with advanced radar and missile defense systems move steadily along the shipping lanes. Surveillance aircraft fly high above the water, tracking vessels and monitoring activity along the coastlines. Specialized mine countermeasure ships operate carefully in areas where hidden explosives could threaten passing tankers. These vessels move slowly, scanning the ocean floor with sonar and deploying robotic vehicles capable of detecting dangerous objects beneath the surface. Each mission requires patience and precision, because a single overlooked mine could damage a ship and trigger a wider crisis. The crews aboard these ships understand the importance of their work. Many of them spend long nights studying radar signals and sonar readings, knowing that their vigilance helps keep global trade moving safely. The narrow geography of the strait adds another layer of complexity to this challenge. In some areas, the navigational channels are only a few kilometers wide, forcing enormous tankers to follow carefully defined routes. These vessels cannot easily change course or accelerate quickly, making them vulnerable if an attack occurs. Iran's naval strategy has often focused on exploiting these conditions. Instead of relying only on large warships, it has invested heavily in fast attack boats, mobile missile systems along the coastline, and drones capable of monitoring activity in the Gulf. These tools allow rapid responses that can create uncertainty for ships moving through confined waters. In moments of heightened tension, uncertainty alone can become a powerful form of pressure. Captains navigating the strait must remain alert to every signal around them. Radar screens display the movement of dozens of vessels at once, from fishing boats to container ships to military patrol craft. Communication between ships becomes constant as navigators confirm positions and maintain safe distances. Far away from these waters, decision-makers follow the situation with growing concern, because they know that the stability of global energy supply depends on maintaining open passage through this corridor. Even countries that do not directly import oil from the Gulf feel the effects of price fluctuations caused by instability here. Energy markets operate on global expectations, and any threat to supply can push prices upward within minutes. The suspense surrounding the Strait of Hormuz is therefore not only about military confrontation, but also about economic confidence. Investors, governments, and industries depend on the belief that international shipping routes will remain open and secure. If that belief weakens, the consequences spread rapidly through financial systems and supply chains. The possibility of escalation connected to the Iran and Israel war intensifies these concerns because it introduces the risk that regional conflict could expand into broader confrontation. Diplomatic channels remain active as leaders from many countries work quietly to prevent such a scenario. Negotiations, intelligence exchanges, and strategic communications all play a role in maintaining stability during uncertain times. Yet the reality remains that the Strait of Hormuz is one of the most sensitive choke points in the modern world. History has shown that even limited incidents in this region can influence global markets and political relations. As night falls over the Persian Gulf, the lights of ships continue to move slowly through the darkness, forming a quiet line across the horizon. Each vessel represents a small but vital link in the chain of global commerce. Sailors from many nations work together to guide these ships safely through the narrow passage, aware that their journey carries significance far beyond the deck beneath their feet. Warships patrol nearby waters, their presence meant to reassure commercial crews that the route remains protected. For now, the strait continues to function, and the flow of energy that sustains the modern world continues without interruption. Yet beneath that calm movement lies a constant awareness that the balance is fragile. In this narrow corridor between two shores, global stability depends on careful decisions, disciplined restraint, and the determination of those working to keep the gateway open despite the gathering tension surrounding it. As the world continues to watch the Strait of Hormuz with anxious attention, the true meaning of this moment reaches far beyond oil tankers and naval patrols. It becomes a powerful reminder of how fragile modern civilization can be when conflict and cooperation collide in the same place. For most people living far from the Persian Gulf, the events unfolding in this narrow waterway may feel distant, almost abstract. Yet the energy that moves through this corridor fuels the electricity in homes, the transportation systems that connect cities, and the industries that support millions of livelihoods. When global stability depends on a passage barely visible on a map, it reveals how deeply connected the world has become. The tension surrounding the Strait of Hormuz is not only about geopolitics or military strength. It is about resilience, responsibility, and the ability of humanity to navigate moments of uncertainty without losing sight of long-term stability. As the Iran and Israel war continues to shape the strategic landscape of the Middle East, leaders across the world are forced to confront difficult questions about security, diplomacy, and the future of international cooperation. Every military exercise, every diplomatic negotiation, and every naval patrol represents an effort to prevent a crisis that could affect billions of people. The stakes are enormous because modern economies depend on steady access to energy, and even temporary disruptions can create waves of economic instability that spread rapidly across continents. Yet within this uncertainty there is also a deeper lesson about human determination. Throughout history, humanity has faced moments when fragile systems appeared close to breaking under pressure. Wars, economic crises, and political rivalries have repeatedly tested the structures that keep societies functioning. Each time those challenges appeared, people responded with innovation, resilience, and a willingness to adapt. The current tension in the Strait of Hormuz reflects that same pattern. Naval forces working together across national boundaries demonstrate that cooperation remains possible even during times of intense rivalry. Sailors from different countries share the same mission of keeping sea lanes open, protecting civilian crews, and ensuring that global commerce continues despite rising geopolitical stress. Their work often goes unnoticed by the wider public, yet it represents one of the most practical forms of international cooperation in the modern world. At the same time, the situation highlights the importance of strategic awareness and preparation. Governments must plan for scenarios that may never happen, developing strategies to respond quickly if shipping routes are threatened. Engineers design advanced surveillance systems capable of monitoring vast ocean areas. Analysts study patterns of trade, security, and diplomacy to better understand how conflicts might evolve. All of these efforts contribute to a broader framework designed to protect global stability. But perhaps the most powerful aspect of this moment lies in its reminder that progress always depends on balance. The same technology and economic growth that have connected the world also create new vulnerabilities. A single choke point can influence markets on every continent, and a single decision made in a distant region can affect the daily lives of people thousands of kilometers away. Recognizing this reality encourages nations to think beyond immediate rivalries and consider the long-term consequences of their actions. The Iran and Israel war has already demonstrated how quickly regional tensions can attract global attention. Yet it also shows how important diplomacy and restraint remain in preventing escalation. History repeatedly proves that the strongest societies are not those that avoid challenges, but those that respond to them with clarity, discipline, and unity of purpose. The Strait of Hormuz, therefore, becomes more than a strategic location. It becomes a symbol of how interconnected the modern world truly is. Every ship passing through the corridor represents the collective effort of countless individuals working to keep the global system functioning. From sailors guiding vessels through narrow channels to engineers maintaining complex navigation systems, each person contributes to a network of cooperation that extends across oceans and borders. Even in moments of tension, this network continues to operate because the world understands what is at stake. When observers look at satellite images of the Gulf at night, they can see lines of moving lights stretching across the water as ships travel through the darkness. Those lights represent more than commerce. They represent continuity, resilience, and the shared determination of humanity to keep moving forward despite uncertainty. The suspense surrounding the Strait of Hormuz reminds us that stability is never guaranteed, but it can be protected through vigilance, cooperation, and thoughtful leadership. The future of global security will always depend on the choices made during moments like this. Whether tensions ease or escalate, the lessons of this crisis will shape how nations prepare for the challenges ahead. For viewers watching from around the world, the message is clear: understanding global events is the first step toward building a more stable future. Awareness allows people to see beyond headlines and recognize the deeper forces shaping the world. And when knowledge spreads, it creates the possibility for wiser decisions, stronger cooperation, and a more secure international community. The narrow waters of the Strait of Hormuz may appear small on a map, but the story unfolding there carries enormous significance for the entire planet. It reminds us that even in the midst of conflict, humanity still has the capacity to protect what connects us all. If you are benefiting from our topics, please subscribe, like, and turn on the bell notification so you can see our new videos early.